Welcome back to another edition of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum podcast. Today's guest is Martin Murphey. Michael has been instrumental in keeping cowboy music and Western folklore alive. His annual Cowboy Christmas Ball carries on a tradition that has endured for decades.
We appreciate you tuning in once again to the podcast of the National Cowboy Museum. Today our special guest is Martin Murphey, one of the West's most beloved performers. And tonight is the Cowboy Christmas Ball with Michael and his band. Michael, it's great having you here. Thanks largely to your efforts, modern versions of the Cowboy Christmas Ball become favorites throughout the West. How did you develop such a passion for this historical event?
In 1985, I acquired a book by Jim Bob Tinsley called He Was Singing This Song, which my mother gave to me as a Christmas present. And it gave the history of Western songs. I had been aware of the Cowboys Christmas Ball song, but never really paid that much attention to the fact that it had such an important and interesting story. I recorded the song as my first single on Warner Brothers when I signed with Warner Brothers Records in 1985, because I didn't have an album ready and they wanted to put something out. So I said, well, let's put out a Christmas single and get rolling that way. So I asked Riders in the Sky and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band to join me, and we recorded the Cowboys Christmas Ball song.
As a folklorist, how significant is William Lawrence Chittenden's poem, The Cowboys Christmas Ball?
In the process of reading the book, I realized that Larry Chittenden from upstate New York had written the piece, the poem, that it had been turned into music somewhere about 1895, that the tradition was that a couple got married and they had a big wedding dance, which Larry Chittenden called the Cowboy Christmas Ball. Now, Chittenden was about 25 years old when he came to Anson, Texas, to visit his uncle who had a big cattle ranch down there. You know, back east people figured really big in the cattle business. Mm-hmm. I read this story and I became fascinated with this Larry Chittenden guy. He's 25 years old. His uncle passed away just a few years later after he wrote the poem and published it in the New York Times and in the London Times, and put out a book called Ranch Verses, which I think was the first serious hit book, best-selling book of poetry ever put out. And that's because it was published in London. Americans didn't even take cowboy poetry and cowboy music seriously then. But since it was an amusing poem, people kind of accepted it, thought it was funny, but it was wildly popular in Europe. I became really interested in this guy because he became popular with the Texans. When his uncle suddenly passed away, Larry Chittenden gets on a train with all of his stuff, comes down and takes over the ranch and runs it for his uncle and stays in the community for years and gets involved in producing a Cowboys Christmas Ball over and over again with Wendy Bill Wilkinson, who was the original caller in the ball. I became fascinated with this. I recorded this song. In 1990, I put out an album called Cowboy Christmas with the song on it. It was another recording of it, plus a lot of other stuff. This is my follow-up album to Cowboy Songs Volume 1, which came out in 1989, which my record company nearly kicked me off the label for doing because they said nobody wanted cowboy music. They wanted modern country music, you know, songs about drinking, depression, and divorce. They didn't want songs about horses, cattle, and the wide open range. They said, we want a follow-up album now. And I said, well, let's do a Christmas album, Cowboy Christmas. And it was based on the fact that in 1990, where I lived in Taos, New Mexico, this huge storm came in, knocked out all the power in the town. And we had nothing to do but sit around by the fireplace and actually sing Christmas carols and talk to each other and sing songs. And open presents and take care of the livestock by chopping holes in the ice instead of using electric tank heaters. I based the whole album on that. The Cowboy Christmas Ball that we held that year was held by candlelight in Taos at our house. We had a big old adobe house with a big living room, and we would dance in there. A year later, I got a phone call from some people in Anson, Texas, and they said, my name is Juanita Beasley. She said, my husband's J.B. Beasley, and we are the president and vice president of the Cowboys Christmas Ball, and we would like to have you come and play on it. And I said, you mean there's still a Cowboys Christmas Ball? She said, yes, we've been keeping it going for quite a few years. We just played the 76th annual reenactment, what they call the reenactment of the Cowboys Christmas Ball. They try to reenact what happened in 1885. But anyway, that's how I became interested in it. The set of circumstances led to the fact that I actually found out there was a real Cowboys Christmas Ball. Then I got into even more history about it, how it was saved, so forth. So then we started playing it. We haven't missed a year since.
Well, can the public attend the annual Christmas Ball in Anson, Texas?
Now, they always kind of opened it up to the locals, but they never promoted it widely. After they booked me there, they said, we just don't know how to promote this thing, so it's really up to you to promote it. So I got involved in buying the radio ads and trying to help them out, and I realized they'd never copyrighted the name, they'd never trademarked it or anything. So I got a federal trademark on it for them, and I helped them form a 501c3. And so that they now can take donations and stuff. And we've ramped up the donations, but we still keep the ticket prices really low. They do 3 nights. Now, because of the Oklahoma Cowboys Christmas Ball here at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Center, we play on Thursday night. We used to play on Friday, but we play on Thursday night now. We come here on Friday, and then on Saturday we go somewhere else. Next year we may go back to Anson and do Saturday too. What's charming about it and what's great about it is it's always been a real down-home local thing produced by 12 couples who are the Texas Cowboys Christmas Ball Committee. Juanita Beasley was the president for 50 years. When we first played it, she was talking about the fact that she knew Wendy Bill Wilkinson and she knew Larry Chittenden when she was a little girl. She just died recently. She was 99 years old.
Yeah, there's a great tradition of you coming to the National Cowboy, for the ball here. How long has it been now?
That I've come, let's see, how long have I been at the Oklahoma event? I'd say probably going on 15 years. I've been at Anson for nearly 20 years now. And it was 13 years ago that I first brought it to Bass Hall in Texas. And that's when it really took off as a production. We use big rear screen projectors. We have a campfire on stage, a lot of special effects. But the main thing people love about the stage production is that we show the members of the Cowboys Christmas Ball, we interview them, we show people dancing at the Texas Cowboys Christmas Ball. In the history business, any place like the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Center will tell you, making it come alive is now what's really important to really educate people about it. So we have a living history situation here where people come in the old-time ball dresses. The women sometimes spend here in Oklahoma a whole year making their dresses. Why not? Why not return to a family view of frontier-style dancing? Maybe that could print through to modern times. The reason why most people fear their kids, their husbands and their wives hanging out in the honky-tonks is they don't want them to be accosted by drunks. They don't want to have those kind of problems. I've seen great-grandparents. In fact, last night I saw great-great-grandparents dance with their great-great-grandchildren. But it's all about honoring cowboy tradition, honoring the people of the land, honoring the cattle industry. This is specific to something been going on since 1885 that was for the cowboys and for the ranchers. Country music has always been heavily linked to hard drinking and honky-tonks, And I'm not a teetotaler, and I don't fault people going into a pub or a saloon sometimes. But you have to understand why the ministers in West Texas originally back in the 20s and 30s attacked the ball. It was because they didn't want people to go to a dance, because dancing had kind of been hijacked by the honky-tonks and the speakeasies, and they were dangerous places for people to go. The other thing was that in the 1880s, there were no liquor control boards. Wyatt Earp says in his autobiography that when he walked into a saloon in a buffalo camp in the 1870s, he saw a man walk up to a makeshift saloon, which is a board across two barrels, drink one glass of whiskey and drop dead. They went into the back and looked into the barrels and said that it was wood alcohol that had been colored with tea to make it have the color of whiskey, but it was actually just wood alcohol. And they had rattlesnake heads floating in it. And the guy said, well, I put those in there to give it flavor. That's why they called it tangle leg. They called it tarantula juice. They call it all that. So along comes Carrie Nation, right, known as the Battle Axe, and goes in and starts smashing up saloons. And I've lived through a generation that laughed about that and made fun of that all my life. But you know what? Carrie Nation's husband died an alcoholic, just the same way that Wyatt Earp described. Dropped dead from one glass of whiskey, gave him a heart attack. And so she went in with a lot of other women and busted up these saloons because their husbands were dying. It was killing them. It was like we look at meth today, you know, the meth addicts. So that's why alcohol got a bad reputation and dancing got hijacked along with it. The Cowboys Christmas Ball in Anson has never allowed alcohol and never allowed smoking so that the ministers would leave them alone. But it took a while. A little old lady named Leonora Barrett saved the Cowboys Christmas Ball. She did that by writing a letter to President Roosevelt in 1936 saying, we are celebrating the centennial of Texas. We would like to bring the Texas Cowboys Christmas Ball Committee to dance at the White House. And he accepted. And they went there. Little did he know they weren't even holding a ball anymore in Anson at that time because the ministers had shut it down because it was a dry county and they made a law against dancing. There is still a law on the books in Anson against dancing. To have a dance in Anson, you have to get a special permit from the city council, even today. So the Texas Cowboys Christmas Ball only exists by fiat of the city council every year. I just think it's all a wonderful story.
Was such Christmas balls, were they traditional at all? Have you found throughout the rest of the West during that 80s period?
You know, I have found that there were Christmas balls in other states and other places, but they started pretty much after the Anson poem came out.
Music started sighing and wailing through the hall as a kind of introduction to the Cowboys Christmas Ball.
I have the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum to thank for helping me build this Cowboy Christmas Ball tradition. Thanks to them and Bass Hall, who took it on many, many years ago, we're now putting on Cowboy Christmas Balls all over the country, and they're fundraisers. This one is a fundraiser, you know, for the museum. But we have other fundraisers that we play. So that's how we're trying to use these balls. I have this museum and center to thank for being real early on sensitive to the fact that it was a great tradition that needed to be preserved. Look where this has all led, thanks to this organization's commitment to make sure that it perpetuates Western tradition.
Michael, thank you for taking the time tonight. We know it's busy, you're getting ready for the Cowboy Christmas Ball in just a few minutes, but this has been great. If you're ever in Oklahoma City during Christmas, the Cowboy Christmas Ball, an annual event here at the museum, is a must. Thanks for tuning in.
This podcast is a companion to our quarterly publication, Persimmon Hill Magazine. It's a great resource for keeping you in touch with our great Western heritage and is available by subscription. Visit nationalcowboymuseum.org for details. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.